Hi, this is Joana from Input Studio. Welcome to another video. In today's video, we're going to answer one of our subscribers' questions, which was how do we know where to place an instrument in the mix, and how are we certain of which frequencies we should boost, which frequencies we should cut in order to fit a particular instrument in the context of the mix. This is a very pertinent question, one that I think we should all be aware of how to do these sort of things and how to play with the instruments in the mix. And I have to say that the most important way that we can avoid issues and instruments clashing with each other is obviously if we are available to be part of the recording process or the production process. And I say this because often we get tracks when we're mixing a song for another artist and we have a vocal competing with the bass, or a kick drum competing with the bass, or perhaps an acoustic track in which the guitar is very bass soundy and that there's a bass as well, and then the singer also has got a very deep voice. So in these sort of mixes, we all struggle to know if everything is very bassy, if there's not much high end on the song, how are we going to place the different instruments together and make the song sound even and balanced and have a bit of each frequency to make the song exciting to hear. And so if you are able to be part of the production process, this will make your life way easier down the line, because these decisions you can make them in the beginning and avoid harder work later that's just going to be frustrating. So in this particular case, for example, you could tell the producer or the recording artist to perhaps try to play the guitar in a different way, or perhaps try to play the guitar instead of the same lower key sounding chords, to play chords that are perhaps higher pitched and chords that perhaps won't fight with the singer's vocal. So all of these decisions you can and you should make them when you're recording a song, if you have the opportunity to do so. If you don't have the opportunity to be involved in the recording phase of a song, obviously it will come down to the mix. And in the mixing stage, this is where life gets a bit harder for you as a mixing engineer. And this is hopefully what we're going to dive deep in today's video. So stick to this video, subscribe if you haven't, and let's get to the computer. So I've got this vocal EQ cheat sheet by 343 Labs. I haven't done this one, it's by them. I'll leave the link in the description below. And this is always available to me whenever I have a doubt or where to place an instrument in the mix. And this is basically kind of a reminder of where the crucial areas kind of are, and that helps me place an instrument in the mix. I can't tell you that, for example, if you're mixing a piano, you should boost 4K and you should cut 300K, or if you're mixing an acoustic guitar, you should boost that and cut that. No, none of us can tell you that, unfortunately, because each song is a song, and you guys can't be mixing instruments in solo. You should be mixing the instruments with all the tracks engaged and within the context of the mix. Obviously, if you want to isolate a problem, it's okay to solo a track, cut the problem, and then unsolo it again. But in general, mixing a song, all the instruments need to be playing at the same time. And that's the reason why there's not like a formula to tell you that if you're mixing a certain instrument, this is what you have to do. And that's perhaps the doubt of many of you guys. So the approach to this is listen to all the tracks together, decide what the vision for the song is going to be. If you want a very thick, warm, punchy song, or if you're looking to more of a smoother tone for the song, and that also depends on the vision of the artist for the song. So once you have that in your mind, that's where when you're going to decide where to place the instruments. And like I've mentioned, if it's a good recording, half the job is going to be done for you already. The instruments are going to be in different octaves. They're going to be filling different places of the frequency spectrum. So your job is going to be easier. But if that's not the case, then it's up to you, the mixing engineer, to decide where to place them. And so instead of going by instrument, usually I go by character and by tone and by emotion, and all of those things together tell me where I want to place a vocal. So let's look at the cheat sheet, for example. And this is pretty good. It has got a lot of, pretty much everything. So let's say, for example, in the example I was giving you, that I think the vocal is competing, because it's a very deep vocal, very warm sounding vocal, is competing with the bass, is competing perhaps with the kick drum as well, and is also competing with a piano that was played in a very low octave. So the song is very busy in the 200 to 500, 600 area, for example. So I'm going to have to do some deep cleaning to kind of create a bit of separation in the mix. So the first thing I would do is decide which instrument to prioritize. I would, if it's a pop track or kind of a track that's playing on the radio, prioritize the vocal, because the vocal is usually the lead of any pop song. And so I would try to keep the warmth of the vocal, and then I would fit perhaps the piano a bit higher up, and perhaps the bass drum, try to keep some of that thickness, but also kind of pushing it to the lower end a bit more to carve some space for the vocal. So how would I do that? In the cheat sheet, you can see that to preserve the warmth of an instrument, in this case of the vocal, I would leave perhaps the area of 250 to 300 untouched. I would leave it there. And perhaps I would try to dip at around this area to try to fit the bass in and to leave the thickness to the bass. Let's put it that way. So on the vocal, I would leave this area untouched, and then perhaps I would carve a little bit of space here to then fit the bass in this area. Okay? That would hopefully already create some separation. And then let's say for the piano is playing on a very low octave, so kind of around this area. And I basically have got, other than the hi-hats, for example, if it's an acoustic song, other than the hi-hats and the snare, I have got nothing really in this area to kind of give it a bit of presence to the track and excitement. So what I would probably do is I would grab the piano and I would EQ the piano in a way that I would cut around this area to leave space for the vocal and the bass. And then I would perhaps leave this area untouched or even boost it. And that would give the instrument, the piano, some clarity. If I boost that around this area, some presence, and it would make the track a bit more balanced. We didn't have anything at around this area, and now we do. We have the piano. Okay? Not to forget that lower sounding instruments, like, for example, in this case, the vocal and the bass, they also have got harmonics and they have got content in the higher octaves, okay, around this area. Perhaps they're not so present, but we could also boost them to give a certain character. For example, the attack of the strings on the bass, we could be boosting it around this area and that would come up a little bit. Probably not the case in this particular example. But for example, for the vocal, the sheen of the vocal is quite higher up. If you can see on the cheat sheet, the sheen of the vocal, that airy kind of sound, those kind of details of the singer in the microphone, those little pops on the vocal, they can be boosted if you boost the vocal EQ at around 8K and above. Okay, so that could also be a trick to increase the air in the track that is not very perceptible to the ear, but it's pleasing to the ear, that sort of area. Careful though, that in the vocal, if you boost at around 6K, that's where the sibilances are. If you see here at the bottom, and this is amazing, this cheat sheet, because it shows you on the like, if you boost, what that's going to give, but also if there's too much of it, what you need to cut to what issues you should solve. So sibilances are around this area. So careful when you're boosting a vocal at around this area, trying to look for air. The air is not there. The air is higher up, okay? So be careful about that. So I'm just going to show you an example here, very quick 4-track example. And this is GarageBand, because why not? Let's make a video on GarageBand. It's free for those of you who have a Mac, so it's a very nice, easy start for you guys. You can do a pretty decent basic mix in GarageBand. So I'm just going to play a bit of these tracks that I have downloaded from Cambridge Mixing Multitracks website. I'll also put the link in the description. They are free to use, so go ahead and check them out. It's pretty cool for you to practice your mixes. So let's play a bit of the chorus and let's hear how that's sounding. Try to listen for areas that you would probably shape the sound a little bit to make the track sound a bit more rounded and a bit more balanced.
Understand and why every grain of truth is slipping through my head, and I'm just
okay. So listening to this, it's very well recorded. I mean, great microphones, a U47, but obviously the microphones are picking up the guitars as well, and they are picking up the background vocalist singing next to the lead singer, and they're picking up both guitars. So there's a bit of everything going on here, and that could cause a bit of confusion. And I would just probably do very minor things here. Once again, the singer is singing on a higher octave than the guitars are playing, and then the background vocalist, which is also playing another guitar, is not singing on the same notes, so that also helps in the recording stage, like we've mentioned. But I would just probably try to clean a bit of the muddy kind of sound in the lower octaves and just kind of do some very basic EQing to try to fit things in together. So what we have done here is to the main vocal, let me just mute the other ones. To the main vocal, we have cut a little bit of the lows because it was picking a lot of rumble from the guitars. And like that cheat sheet that I have just showed you, I boosted around the warmth area and I boosted the sheen of the vocal. And I have done a slightly different EQ on the background vocalist. I cut the lows still to cut that kind of rumble and like picking up from the other instruments. I cut at around the thickness area to leave space for the guitar, and I have boosted this area right here because I felt like the vocalist vocal was quite present here, so I wanted to give it a bit more presence in the mix, and I have panned his vocal slightly to the right. So then with the acoustic guitars opposite to the vocal, I also cut at around 30 and less because I mean we can't hear that anyway. And usually this area can have a bit of, I mean, air conditioner kind of sound, and it is not pleasing. So I cut around that area. I have cut where I boosted in the vocal, in the warmth area, and I have boosted slightly on the thickness kind of area according to that cheat sheet. And I've also boosted a little bit of the sheen to make the track sound a bit more balanced. And then we have done a similar kind of concept on the other guitar, but I felt like it was already bright enough, so I didn't boost that final sheen area. So let's hear how that sounds, and then you can pause and go back in the video to compare with how it sounded before.
understand and why every grain of truth is slipping through my head, and I'm just always trying to get back to the start.
It's sounding pretty cool to me. Another thing I have done is I've compressed the vocal a little bit, and then I've added just a tiny bit of reverb, and I've added a tiny bit of ambience to one of the guitars. And that was it. And it's already sounding quite different to me, and it's sounding a bit more balanced. What do you think? Does it sound better or does it sound worse? So I hope this video was useful to you guys, and I hope that you start practicing this on your mixes, like on this video answering to one of our subscribers' questions. If you've got other questions or if you've got other doubts, make sure you just hit me a message in my social media, or if you just leave a comment in one of the videos below, I'll make sure I'll check it out and plan a video for you guys. Also, if you are in need of any mixing tips or mixing services even, you can also contact me on the contact details below. So I hope you have enjoyed this video and you have learned something. Once again, subscribe if you haven't, and just give me the thumbs up to help with the video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.